a cyber failure in the supply chain could cause a project failure, that's where you get people's attention. And so like, it's going to come from the insurance side. It's going to come from the client side, and it may come from the regulatory side, down the road.
You're listening to Protect It All, where Aaron Crow expands the conversation beyond just OT, delving into the interconnected worlds of IT and OT cybersecurity. Get ready for essential strategies and insights. Here's your host, Aaron Crow.
Excellent. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Protect It All podcast. Lee and I were just talking before this. I've said this many times in my podcast, but a lot of times I'm talking with people for the very first time that we've never, like maybe we've interacted, maybe we've had a pre-call, we've engaged a little bit through email or LinkedIn messaging, etc. But many times these are the first times that I've really had an extended conversation with people that I get to sit across from. And those are amazing conversations for me. And some people get nervous because as you can attest to, Lee, we have no agenda. I don't exactly know what we're going to talk about or where we're going to go. And that can be nerve-wracking. But at the same time, for me, that brings out really honest conversations that again, they're not marketing, they're not sales pitch, like they're just raw conversations. Like I always tell people, and like I told you today, it's like us sitting down and having a beer or a coffee or lunch and just talking about what we do and why we do it and why we're passionate about it. So Lee, thank you very much for accepting my LinkedIn message, realizing I wasn't trying to sell you something, and then responding and taking time to come talk with me and the audience about the things that you do. So with that, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get to where you're at today?
Sure. So, thanks again for having me on the pod. This is exciting for me too. So, I have my own, risk advisory firm that started last summer, and I'm focused in the architecture, engineering, and construction space, or the AEC space. That's not how I got here. Like how I got here is a windy road. It started in third grade when my mom went back to college for a computing certificate at NC State. And my babysitter was a COBOL lab. So like it was punch cards, taking them to the compiler and like, please don't drop them, like, or it's going to take us forever to resort this. So that's awesome. Kind of how I got started in IT. Things obviously evolved and changed, did some COBOL in college, was thinking that was going to kind of be my path coming out of college. And, one of my career, what ifs, was I got an offer to work at Walmart because my mom at the time was working for Walmart in Bentonville for Randy Mott and helped build Walmart's first buyer decision support system. And so I got to see that evolution and, vicariously live some of that through her. And there was a guy named Kevin Turner that was starting a new team and interviewed me and gave me an offer. And I said no, because I didn't want to make 18 grand a year. Didn't want to live in Bentonville. Now, if you look at Bentonville, it's great. At the time, it was just a sleepy little town. What I didn't know is the offer was to be on the first web team at Walmart. So, that would have been cool. And then I got picked up by a recruiter and I spent the first part of my career in recruiting technology people. So, I wanted to work in technology, and be a technologist. And that was that wasn't exactly where I got started. But it was a great first career for me. And a lot of the work that was happening at the time was building networks and then starting to, I had projects where people were starting to build, put firewalls in the networks and bring other folks in. So that's where I got kind of pulled into cyber. And that was 20 something years ago. Did that for a little bit longer, got my first real cyber job at a advanced technology Cisco bar. Did that for a couple of years. Then I moved to a boutique application security consultancy in San Antonio and did layer 7 work, AppSec, for 7 years. And then the final move before starting Whitecap was I joined Strauss Friedberg as part of the DFIR and the proactive services team. Mm-hmm. And then shortly after that, we got bought by Aon. So I spent 9 years at Aon living inside of the cyber solutions group, which was also their broking and quant teams, which is pretty cool. It's a neat, interesting space to be in, especially on the cyber side, because you really got to learn and see how the business thinks about cybersecurity. And then Aon spun that division out last summer. And when I was looking around at what I wanted to do, what I'm doing now is exactly what I wanted to do.
Right. It's, I again, like I said in the beginning, I get the joy and the opportunity and the privilege to talk to folks like you. And it's always surprising, or it shouldn't be surprising by now. The people that are I know it's subjective, but the people that are the most successful in their careers are people that maybe don't always have I went to college, I took a computer science degree and I started coding COBOL, and I've been a programmer my whole career. There are obviously people that are that, and I'm not throwing shade at those, but you just talked about, you went through this path and you thought you were going to go over here, and then you ended up in recruiting, which is on the surface, not super technical. But that skill set, I would assume, because I have a similar path in mine. It was in the beginning, it was in the middle, but that experience and that skill set that you learned in that thing helped you along the path that you probably didn't think about at the time that would be beneficial as a coder or as a cyber person, being able to have those interpersonal skills, being able to read people, being able to make those those soft skills work for you. It's how you can open a business, how you can do a consultancy. It's how you can do all of those things. And they're not taught at traditional schools. When you get your computer science degree, they're not teaching you, language and communication and business acumen and all the other things that you need to understand when you get into this business, no matter what it is. Like, I had a mentor and that said a long time ago, and I say this all the time, people probably get tired of me hearing it, but all business is a people business. So no matter if you're the CEO or the janitor or the coding guy, you have to work with and through people. And you can do that with a hammer and force your way through, or you can do it with an olive leaf or olive branch and make friends and connections and relationships and do that much faster. So I appreciate that.
I've heard that in the past is influence and authority, right? If you always lead with authority, it hurts your influence.
It does.
So you want to lead with influence as much as you can. And a lot of the roles that I've had haven't had a ton of authority with them, and have required me to influence decision makers and influence, project teams, influence engineering groups to try to, to get everybody aligned and rowing in the same direction. So that served me well for sure.
Yeah. So digging into what you're doing, with everything is blowing up. Obviously, AI is blowing up. With that, we're building more data centers. We're building more like the engineering side and how all these things interconnect, right? You look at cyber informed engineering, and we're looking at power plants and operations and manufacturing and all this type of stuff. And some of the difficulties that we've had in the OT side and critical infrastructure and all these spaces is we're trying to bolt on cyber that wasn't designed in the process in the beginning, whether it's the management system, the air conditioning, whatever. How has that just blowing up right now with all that's coming with AI and all the data centers and all the logistics and physical infrastructure that we're this country and others are trying to build out?
Sure. And famously, if you go back a few years, the Target breach was one of the first, like building automation systems that was the point of entry. So in the construction space, when you say security, that means building security for the most part. So that's HID cards and proximity sensors and all this stuff that goes into the BAS systems. And a lot of even the electrical contractors have a low voltage group that does their physical security piece, so that they're really tied into what ultimately becomes part of the OT environment for a lot of these organizations. There's a study done in Austin recently about just where construction lives and what's going on and the scale of what's happening. It's like the UT Medical Center academic campus is happening. There's, out in Taylor, what Samsung is doing with the $1 billion expansion of their new plant, new fab, and everything else that goes along with it. So there are pockets of construction happening, at massive scale. I know I'm part of the Risk Information Management Society, and they're really following a lot of enterprise risk commentary around these big data center projects. And one of the challenges right now, if you've read the news, is that they can't even it's supply chain. What's slowing down a lot of these data centers is just that the gear that they need in the facility is not available.
Right. And beyond that, right, is you talked about it just now, like, how are we building into these processes the right risk? And to me, risk and cyber are coinciding. Not all business risk is cyber related, but all cyber risk is a business risk, right? And ultimately, that's the language we need to put it into. Too many times we're having cyber as this separate thing. It really bubbles up to, many times the CFO of who is owning the actual risk to the business. And that's no matter if it's supply chain, if it's, brand reputation, or legal or compliance or cyber. It really should just be one of those things, right?
Yeah, Rich Shyerson, that wrote the book How to Measure Anything in Cybersecurity Risk, like, he talks about the money people all the time. And so, like, that's like one of my kind of core audiences is the money people. And I've had, just like the benefit of being part of Aon as long as I was, like, that's the room that they're in is the money people room. And generally I was like one of the few cyber people, if not maybe the only cyber person in a lot of those meetings, and really, felt my role was to open that conversation and make sure we get the right people in the room so that we're representing the risk the right way. In the AEC space, they're masters at managing risk. So, like, the architects, engineers, and construction firms, all they do is manage risk. And there is a big safety culture. So, and that's physical risk, and like falls and all of the things that can happen on a job site. And I'm really trying to leverage that safety culture to drive more cyber adoption, because what's going on is that the AEC firms are carrying more risk than they realize that they're carrying. But the paradox is, because the numbers are low enough, and everybody's got a story. If you talk to anybody in construction, everybody's been hit with something. A lot of it's fraud. It's still very high levels of BEC. There's some ransomware. Business interruption occurs sometimes. Sometimes, if it gets big enough. And we always, like, in the past, before I got into doing just AEC work, like, it's, how do you get, a client to get the religion before an event? Like, what does that really look like? And what I'm finding in AEC is that they've all had an event and still don't have the religion. Because to them, like, it's just another risk. It's, it's something that has to be dealt with. And I really think it's because we as an industry and as a security community have made it really too hard for these business owners that maybe their dad started the company, or their grandpa started the company. They're 50 years old. They're 50 million or 100 million in revenue. They've got a couple hundred employees. They'd rather do it with a pencil and a piece of paper. But, IT showed up a while back. They've got either some kind of outsourced MSP, or they tap the youngest person at the firm to be the computer guy, because, like, you're young, this computer stuff. And they've kind of grow up, building this as they have, like, their day job. And a big part of what I'm trying to do is help, in a number of different ways, those organizations get their arms around this, point them to things that make sense. That are not big asks, like the lowest hanging fruit. If everybody's got admin on their box, let's fix that, right? Like, that's the things. Like, let's make it a little bit harder for the hackers and get your maturity up from a 3 out of 10 to a 5 or a 6 out of 10.
Right.
And that's really the state of that business right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, coming in as a consultant, many times, I walk in the door and there's been 5 other consultants that have come in before me, and they do the assessment. And again, I say this a lot, but it's like, my freshman English paper when I got it back the first time, and it was just all red because everything on it was like, this is wrong and this is wrong and this is wrong. It's just like, what do I do with that? Like, was there anything right? Did I do anything well? Just throw it away and start over. And that's where a lot of these places, especially in the OT, especially in engineering and all of these, building management systems and physical security systems and things, it's very easy to look at them and say, well, you're not patching and this system is older and just go down the list and talk about all the bad. But to your point, many times the biggest bang for the buck is going to be the least complicated and the most foundational. Make sure they've changed their passwords. Make sure we don't have those devices directly on the internet. Make sure we have some, like, those simple, basic foundational things things, if they would do those low hanging fruit, they get a huge return on that risk and lowering their risk. Yes, it's not 100. We're not trying to gold plate or platinum anything. And you don't have to, right? So I think part of that is cyber professionals in the industry, obviously trying to sell things. Again, I was a vendor. I get it. But on the flip side, like if you overwhelm them, they're just going to do nothing. And then they don't know what to do. They're still sitting here with a report that says all these things are wrong and they don't know what to do with it. Like, how do I fix everything? I don't have time, resources, or money to do that. So I'm just going to throw that in the trash bin and continue doing what I've been doing.
Yeah. The other thing that does happen is the business is moving forward with a lot of IT kind of based initiatives. And the marketing team is spinning up platforms, where a business owner will spend money is really in the core, something that they're doing that is very related to their business. So like in an architecture firm, there's a platform, Autodesk Construction Cloud. And a tool called Revit. So they have an on-site version because some of these files are huge, right? And you couldn't, if you just think what a building blueprint for a 20-story building would look like, and every single piece, like every electrical connector, every piece of HVAC equipment, every bit of plumbing, every single thing, like any engineering component of that building is in that file. So those files are stored locally. And then they have a sharing platform with ACC, which is how they work with the other subs and the GC and everybody else. And then there's the pay apps that get compiled and consolidated. And that's the target for a lot of the threat actors, is trying to insert themselves into that payment chain to defraud somebody somewhere. Right. And it happens all the time. And now like these, Autodesk and Procore and these core applications that do project management, typically, and there's also a data issue there too, and data ownership, because whose data is it, right? If you've got a general contractor that won the bid, and they have the Procore instance that they're working with, and Procore is doing some amazing work in the AI space as well. They bought DataGrid. They've got AI capabilities all over the place. So, and really it's around unstructured data, because what in the past was really hard to deal with, let's point AI at that, train it in a way that works in this business so that we can start getting meaningful, results from this unstructured data that's never, nobody's ever been able to comb through before. So yeah, so all this stuff is working together. And the risk question is I don't know if we have the answer for it yet. If a sub, is the one that's compromised, and then now it's the GC's data, but where the responsibility comes there, is still, relatively new. One of the things that I'm trying to do is help the entire community. And I've got a talk at the Association of General Contractors Technology Conference, later this summer, that's really focused on, I think the title of the talk is "Nobody Gets Hacked Alone: How we build a cyber community inside of the construction space." Because banking's done it, healthcare's done it, oil and gas has done it, all these industries have done it. There's cyber orphans everywhere, all over the place in the AEC industry. And I know Wendy from Austin talks about this security poverty line, and these are firms that are below it. And then you have the announcement of the vulnpocalypse that's come out and everything that's happening there. And in anything that is global, the big company vulns that are identified and fixed, that's going to help all of us, right? That's the rising tide for everybody. The problem is if you have 3 versions back of an AutoCAD platform you're running locally, or, old versions of a Procore platform, that now a known vulnerability is there and there's a fix for it, but you didn't patch, and all of your project data is there, you could have a big problem.
Yeah. Well, and what you just said there is super important for people to hear and listen, right? And as we have AI getting into making vulnerabilities more readily available for bad actors, and so patching isn't your only solution, and patching isn't potentially even going to help you, right? Because you can patch today and AI could find another vulnerability tomorrow before they even, about it, before they can make a patch. Like all that life cycle happens so much faster. That just goes to show how we need to be doing the fundamentals that much better. I need to be able to have disaster recovery. I need to make sure I've got all those files backed up in a place that, vulnerability can't get to it offline. Like I remember back in the day of taking, the DLT tapes out of the tape drives and putting them into a canister that Iron Mountain would come pick up and take it off site to a protected location, right? And then they would every week they came in, every day they came in, and they would rotate those tapes and everything, because we knew, hey, if this data center burns or an EMP or any of those types of things, we have to be able to get it back up from scratch. And that is more important. Like it's obviously important that we protect from the outside, because we don't want bad actors getting in, ransomware, locking things down. But we have to assume and think through what happens when that happens. What happens when the fire takes it down, or a bad actor gets in here and ransomware takes over, or any number of things. But hey, all of my systems are broken. Now what?
Yeah,
I've got new systems. How do I recover? How do I get back up and running?
Yeah, the business interruption is really one of the big costs when you start like looking at quantification. And one of the things that I'm doing now is really trying to understand from a dollars perspective where these organizations are at. Like what do you think, or what are you spending on IT? What do you think you should be spending on IT? Does that really, does that make sense? Is it like, how does this help you grow? How does this make you bid ready? Because like where CMMC is in place, like that's an easy one, because the AEC industry has been relatively unregulated for a long time. There is no OCC at the door. There is no HIPAA rule. So it's state data privacy laws, CMMC now, and a couple other things that may drive some of the behavior. So, but it's also customers. And if you're a sub and the GCs, like if the surety bond requires that that there is a cyber insurance element, or a cyber readiness, because it's a BI problem, and a cyber failure in the supply chain could cause a project failure. That's where you get people's attention. And so it's going to come from the insurance side. It's going to come from the client side, and it may come from the regulatory side, down the road.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny that you just brought that back up, right? Is we just wrap back around to how it's tied to the money, like follow the money, like the cyber insurance, the risk side of that. It's all about the overall business risk and what the cost is, right? So as I'm receiving bids, if I'm putting out an RFP as a customer, and I'm saying, and I'm assessing them, I'm not just looking at capabilities, credentials, price. That kind of thing. I'm also looking at cyber risk, right? What level are they at of those things? Because that's going to be a factor, and it should be a factor in my overall decision. I may pay more for the same work from a different contractor because they have a better cyber posture, right? Over somebody that may be cheaper, but they don't have the polish and capabilities on the cyber risk side that this other firm does, right? And that's a realistic state that you're in. And to your point, like, are you below that cyber poverty line or not? And AI can help you maybe get above that in some places. Some of those things aren't necessarily expensive. They're just process and procedure, but others, obviously they may have a different licensing and architecture and implementation requirement to be able to get to that next level, to be, competitive with those larger brands that have a more, a mature cyber program in their offering.
Yeah. So do you know how the construction firms win work, or what that biz dev process looks like?
Go through it, please.
I'm just learning this too. So like I'm still, I'll tell you what I know. The teams get created for basically every project, and the teams are different on every project. So like the community and the relationships that exist in AEC are very, very strong. And there's a sense of co-opetition to some degree, but I don't get that feel from them, because they, who you work with today, you may be competing with tomorrow, but there's like, especially in Texas and anywhere there's growth, there's a lot of work to go around. So, like the teams get built on a pre-bid basis. And there's even a company that does like, AI bid management called Joist that a lot of people are using, because it's all formal RFPs. Like there are really almost no construction projects occur without some kind of very like formal RFP process.
Sure.
And they'll tell
Makes
you
sense.
up front, is it low bid or is it, like best offer? So it may come down to just the lowest price. Who could do this for the lowest price? And the team has to organize and guess what the materials cost is going to be for all of this stuff, right? There's even an insurance product that when I was at Aon, I heard about where you can pay, you can buy an insurance to say like if you think lumber is going to go up because lumber is up and down and all these commodities that are priced into these bids, like you can buy a policy that will protect you from like a giant overage where now like you're stuck because you thought it was going to be X dollars and it's Y dollars. So the teams get built. Everybody like has to bring their piece of the puzzle together. Somebody like the lead bidder has to either trust or verify or both, everything that's in that package and roll it all up and then get it over, to the client. They typically call them the owner. And then if you win the project, you get going. But like every single project, like if you're using Procore, like every project is a different team. So your suppliers and vendors, like sometimes like some GCs have like subs in their pocket that have deep relationships. And that's always the guy we use for that. And it works there. Right. But sometimes it's a totally different group. And maybe for the specific project, you have to use someone with a specialty that's outside of your core, your core experience, just based on the project itself. So it's just a really unique environment in how structured how you win work is, and then how different teams operate based on the different projects. And, and everybody's working with everybody. It's really wild.
Well, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? You've got, if I'm building houses, so take it down way small, I'm building houses or roofing or whatever. You've got your electrical guy, you've got your plumber that you usually use, but there may be a particular project that you work and you need a certain certification. Well, Bob, your normal plumber doesn't have that certification, so you have to use a different plumber to do those things. You're going to usually use those, but all that to say, like to your point, that's why the general contractor, obviously that's their validation or their justification. That's the value that they're bringing is pulling all these different subs, making sure they have all of those different qualifications and capabilities and checkboxes and compliances and all the different things. That's really what they're bringing to the table. And on something as big as a building, like I had a little bit to do with a very large building being built in Charlotte, at least in the early stages of kind of designing and architecting that from the technology and cyber side of that. And my gosh, like you talked about the drawing, but all of the different things have to align, and how complex the HVAC system and the wiring and, the elevator systems and just all the things that go into a building and all the different people that have their hands on it. And you look at a power plant or any complex manufacturing environment or anything like that. I've been to, very large airports and how crazy it is on how complex they are and how much goes into your bag when you show up at the airport and drop it off to be checked, and all the places it goes before it ends up in the belly of the airplane and out the other end when you land. Like there's a lot of logistics that goes into building a building, building a data center. And there's a reason why the prices are going up. And you talked about that setting that price. I remember back in COVID, because I built an office, like personally, I built an office.
Wow.
And like office attached to my house. So I added an addition onto my house, right? So it was like 30 by 20. And so just buying lumber, like I assumed it was going to be X, and it was like 5X. Like the lumber cost was ridiculous. 2x4s, OSB, plywood, like all those things were just so expensive. It was insane. And it was hard to find, and you didn't have a choice. It wasn't like you could price it. And I mean, you remember the times it was like toilet paper was expensive and you couldn't get paper towels, and bleach was expensive. Like everything was out off the rockers.
I still think that paint should be $20 a gallon in my head. Like I just still think that.
I know.
And every time you buy paint at $70, you're like, really? That's what that is?
What?
Like Yeah, the paint's getting better, but yeah, like
not
everything's
that much
gone up.
better.
Yeah. Yeah. And then now you're throwing digital at this whole thing and the digital transformation that's occurring in construction. And they've actually there have been waves of digital that have occurred in the past and that have overpromised and under delivered. And so the industry's a little gun shy, right? And these business owners that, their margins are thin enough and there's so much other risk that they have to deal with that like our position in cyber and how we support these organizations just has to be with the understanding of how their business works, how we can help them improve, what little goals can we have, what big goals can we have, and show modest improvement, build trust, and then continue kind of expand.
What are some of the big ways, just to dive in a little bit, of how are you helping people build that trust? And to your point, we're dealing with this digital stuff and we're dealing with, all the problems that you talked about earlier. I've been doing this for 50 years. I took over this company for my dad. We've done this stuff by paper. I don't have a dedicated team that does cyber stuff. Like, how do we help people understand, like, we want to do this left of bang. We want to do it before a bad thing happens, and it's cheaper to do it now, and it doesn't have to be platinum coated. Like, how are you winning the hearts and minds of the folks on these things to really understand the value of this in their organization and how it's going to help them win bids and make everything better, longer, even make more money in the long run?
Yeah, I think my approach is I'm really just trying to understand where they're at and what kind of nobody's done nothing. Everybody's done something. So I'm really just trying to understand, like, what do they do? What was their experience with that? Why do they do it? What do they think it was going to give them? Talk through any kind of events or problems that have occurred because they've, I had the CEO of a pretty large electrical contractor tell me, he's like, man, if there's a cyber scam out there, we've been hit by it. Like we fall for everything, right? We've been hit by everything, and have developed capability and built a team. So I think the traditional model of how if you approach someone in the AEC like you would someone in financial services, that's not that's not the right path. Part of it is I leverage the FBI information from the Winter Shield that came out a couple months ago. There are 10 things that the FBI has noticed that are the problems that would occur that would result in some kind of investigation where they get involved. So let's take a look at that. What of those things? What of those 10 things have you guys done something about? What have you not done something about? And what does that gap look like? And is there something on there that would create some benefit above and beyond of just doing cyber for cyber's sake? So it's that. The other thing is helping them think through, what would you do? The next time something bad happens, what would you do? Are you ready? Helping them build a readiness mindset. Most of them haven't run a formal tabletop exercise. I partnered with some guys in LA that built a tool called Reflex Security that is a very cool use case for AI, crisis readiness and crisis prep. So we're having some success with that and helping them think through it. So on every job site, there's a sign, and it says X many days since what?
Since the last incident.
Signs say, yeah, right. So that, it is taking that mentality and trying to help drive that towards, the cyber side of things too. So what are the things, how do we get that board for cybersecurity in the industry, understanding, all the challenges we've discussed and the, the way that the profitability and the real crunch on dollars and get some of those dollars transition. Some of this is through the digital transformation that's already occurring. So their attack surface is growing. They're doing more stuff with tech. If they see an advantage, if the technology that they're implementing is helping them save money, increase wins and sales or do more, there's this concept of digital twin. Have you heard of digital twins?
Yep. But why don't you talk about it? Yeah, please.
Yeah. So, when Notre Dame burned, I didn't know anything about a digital twin. So like the Notre Dame burns in France, and on the news, they're saying, well, like we have this like scan, and this scan of the church may help us actually, rebuild the church. And what it was a digital twin. And there's really two main ways you can do it. There's digital twins for old buildings where you don't know what's in the walls, and digital twins where you're starting from scratch, and you're as the building goes up physically, you're building a digital version of that building. So you can, like in the modern way, you're checking for variance, you're checking for completeness, you're able to go into the project plan, and like as milestones get met, and you're using this digital twin to help validate and kind of get in front of maybe proactively, so you don't get to the top off where they start putting the roof on the building and you've got a problem, right? You could see it early. So can we stop that before? And in historic construction, it really is it's a way to kind of, you could forensically investigate a digital twin, once the scan is done, and once you have some information about what's going on, and extrapolate that to know like how the walls are built, and like what changes you can make and what kind of loads will hold. And even in that case, I mean, like the trees that were available when they built it 500 years ago are very different than the trees that are available today. So if you're going to use wood now versus wood then, what are the structural components of that wood? So that all this digital twin stuff is super interesting to me. And the result of a digital twin is at the end of the project, instead of handing over as-builts in PDF or like a roll of paper with rubber bands on it, and you're like, here's the project, we built it, and they give it to the owner. And then if there's any problems later, this is it. They're providing digital as-builts.
Right.
And you can even, okay, that blower in the ceiling as part of the air conditioner, it's got a 7-year expected life. This is a serial number. This is the company that put it in. This is the warranty that's there. So like what the preventive maintenance would come along with that. There's a ton of stuff you can do with it. And engineering firms and others are like selling these services as a leave behind, just like a little subscription service where the owners are paying for access to these data models that are going to help them lower the cost of building ownership, or just give them a better experience for that. So it's really cool. And when you can tie cyber to an initiative that is driving new work or helping create a differentiation for that company in the marketplace, I think that's a winner too.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, the sky's the limit when you think about all the value on both the customer that's buying the building, the owner of the building, and think about the life cycle asset management, understanding all we already talked about how complex those buildings are and how many pumps and blowers and electrical circuits and wires and all the things that go into that to make that thing work. If you think about, a vulnerability comes out, or, a pump or a motor has a known issue, and the manufacturer reaches out and says, hey, how many of these do you have? I've been in that situation where I don't know, and I have to send a team out to the plant or the location to go individually find every one of them and count them and check the serial number. And is this one of the ones that are applicable or not? Because we don't have that detailed, I have an as-built documentation from 20 years ago, but it hasn't been updated since then. We don't have anything that's live or even near real time. So imagine if you had something that accurate on day one, and you also had the leave behind that you're steadily updating, and you have some kind of asset management, change management process where when I replace that blower motor that's in the ceiling, it's also updated in the documentation, and it's part of that whole life cycle management of your whole building, but also the systems within the building and the devices that make up the systems in the building. And all those things help you understand, what is the total cost of ownership of this thing? How do I what is my, those blowers, they were supposed to last for 7 years, but they've been lasting 2. Why don't we go ahead next time and look at a different vendor? Maybe we need to get a different model, because those blowers are not working as expected. They should be lasting. Those are all the financial things that you can justify that. And yes, there's a cost, but there's a huge return on investment from an owner's perspective of having that data that you can then process and do something with.
Yeah, for sure. I bought an ice machine a couple of summers ago. My in-laws have a place at the coast, on the Texas coast. And when I bought it from a guy in Fort Worth, and it told, like, and it basically, he was selling me the new ice machine, and it had circuit boards in it, and it had, there's all these things it could do. And I'm like, I'm putting this in a garage in Corpus Christi, Texas, and he's like, oh yeah. Like, I'm like, what are the chances this is going to like be around? He's like, yeah, man, that could be a problem. So what we ultimately found was a machine that was like built for Africa. It was like built for sub-Saharan Africa by a company in Europe that this guy had access to. And they had like some of the US, and I got one of the very last ones, because I'm like, I want the old thing. I want the thing that you could stick in a garage in a really hot, humid environment, and is not full of like circuit boards that are just going to fail one after the other. And so some of it is, it's about spec, right? And understanding the environment, being able to do that. And I think as these data models get better, and as the AI gets better, it's the predictive analytics that are going to be around with that, are going to help us be better at bidding projects and at making recommendations to owners, and help supporting those businesses, that are just trying to build things, and keep their crews employed, and make sure everybody's like being successful and growing what they can. And a lot of them aren't really interested in growth. If they have 30 or 40 people, they've had that for a long time. Like they're really happy doing that, and they're comfortable there. And it's, how do you support that firm?
Yeah. Well, and man, as you're saying all these things, I'm just thinking through the value of this, right? Everything now is digital. Like most of these pumps, most of these things have IP addresses. They're smart. I literally was just replacing a toaster that I got 18 years ago when my wife and I got married as a wedding present, and the toaster's finally on its last leg. So I go buy a new toaster, which there's not very many places you can buy toasters anymore. So I went to Amazon, and I put in toaster on Amazon, and what comes up, like the first 20 of them have like display screens, like push button. Like, I don't need a freaking push button on a toaster. It's a toaster. I just need to toast. That's it. Nothing fancy.
But it's like a transistor that's like light, dark. That's it.
That's it. That's the extent. But almost all of them had all these extra features and all. And I get it, whatever, if you want that. But I don't. I want a basic toaster that will work for another 18 years, and I can put toast in it, and I push it down, and I just change how dark or light that I want that toast. But that's rarely an option now. Everything has an IP address, even in these spaces and buildings. But the value of that, especially when you get in that digital twin world, imagine if all of those things was part of your asset inventory. You were monitoring those things. So when you started feeding all, because that's one of the problems that we have in OT, we get access to all this data, and we pipe it into a SOC, a security operations center, right? And we've got these analysts that are looking at it, but they're normally an IT background. They don't know. There's not enough models yet of OT environments that I can plug this into, most SIMs, and understand this OT traffic and what does good look like, right? So I need to understand that. But if I have this digital twin, I understand all the assets, what they are, what their function is, then I can start correlating those things to events that are happening in real world and say, is this a normal expected? Are we in an outage maintenance window? Is this normal behavior? Does this thing normally reboot on a Friday night? Like, what is this normal? Then you can start building those things out. And then that's how you can help the owners. You're helping management. You're helping these companies that can have another billable thing that they can do on recurring revenue, that they're managing and monitoring these systems for the owners, and making sure they're more reliable, more available, and they're getting all the use that they can out of them. They're replacing them before they break. Like, that preventative maintenance thing is huge in a building where people are paying a lot of money for their air conditioner to work. They don't like it when their air conditioner stops working, especially if you're in Texas.
Yeah, it's like the billboards in Texas. They say like, your wife is hot. Like, better call us. Yeah, like it's exactly. Like, it's in the summertime. Yeah.
You don't want the AC to stop working in your building. Like, no water, sure. No air conditioning, nope. That is a deal breaker. So what do you have coming up? What do you want people to know? Like, one of the questions I always ask people as I'm closing out is, and it's obviously changed over the years as AI has become more relevant. And really it's that, hey, what do you see coming up with the horizon in your space that maybe one thing that's concerning and one thing that's exciting, that you see that can make a big impact either positively or negatively if we don't take actions?
Yeah, I mean, I think the digital transformation is here, right? We're in the middle of it. And so it's really about how do we take all of the different vendors that are doing different things with data, take a data-centric approach to that, and opportunistically as the cyber guy and many other, like the only one in many rooms, to help them protect their organization from future risk as we build these out. Cause like, this is the time, like this is our opportunity to get in front of a lot of it before, like the cat gets completely out of the bag. And I think that it is like my message to a lot of folks is it's really like, just find a place to start, because we aren't like, security is a game of good enough. So let's really like define what good enough was before is still good enough, and maybe it's changed. But I think it's important to go through that process where you have the conversation and think about it, because that's there, and I hope to build a little army of cybersecurity, construction folks that are really tailor made to help support, these companies and this business. Because the people are super cool. I mean, everybody I've met, like I just love, like the boots and jeans culture. And like, if you like shotgun shoots and cornhole and barbecue, like this is the business, like the industry you want to work
Absolutely.
in, because, and like, those are all the things that I like near and dear to me. So it's a lot of fun. Like getting called the high tech redneck in the room, because like they don't expect you to be in boots and jeans. I don't know what they expect, but when the cyber guy shows up, they, like a pocket protector and, like tape on your glasses. But yeah, it's been a ton of fun. I'm really excited about what we're building here. And I'm really looking to kind of share this message. So if there's anybody out there that's like in a similar space and wants to kind of jump on board and help, like, it's like, I certainly can't, like, I can barely make a dent in all of the support that this business is going to need.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome, man. It's a need. We see how much construction is going on, how many large construction projects are going on. Like you said, in Austin, I mean, there's cranes all over the place. There's data centers going up. There's Samsung, there's Tesla.
Telematics and data are inside one of those cranes. Just the crane.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Just the crane. Yeah. Like I was talking to Tegan at Americrane, and she like gets pushback from some of her guys and like about tech, and she's like, "Do you know how much tech is in your crane?" Yeah, like it's crazy.
It is. And it's not going to get less. It's only going to get more. So, dude, thank you so much. This is an awesome conversation. Again, everybody sees all the construction. OT is everywhere. Technology is everywhere. Cyber is everywhere. We have to have a plan and be talking about these things and get that out there so people realize, hey, we're not selling fear. The whole point is like, we want to help you to do the right things for your business, but we have to do them now. Like, we can't be thinking about this. Oh, I'll do that later. It's like, you don't change your oil later. You got to change your oil now so it doesn't blow up, because it's really expensive and bad if it does that down the road, right? So that's why I buy Toyota. It's why I have a 91 Land Cruiser in my driveway, right? It's because it just works.
That's on brand, Aaron. Like that is an on brand vehicle for you, just based on this last conversation for the past hour. Yeah,
exactly. Well, hey man, thank you. What, anything you want people to know? You mentioned your talk that's coming up. Anything else you want people to know or come see you with?
Yeah, I mean, my website is whitecaprisk.com. Pretty simple. Yeah, just, hit me up if you've got any questions, or if there's anything I can do to help, or, if you've got an idea on something. I'm starting the process of interviews in like potentially for a book with business owners to help understand, like, I really want to know like what makes them tick around risk. So, that's happening too. And if you've got, ideas or want to help with that, it's certainly open to that conversation too.
Outstanding. Well, everybody, I'll have all the details for Lee in the show notes. As always, check out his website, check out his LinkedIn, reach out if you want to collaborate or work with him, or maybe you're a business owner that would be interested in being interviewed for that book. That sounds like a great idea. So definitely check that out. We'll put it all in the show notes and link it on LinkedIn, all the different things. Lee, thank you so much for coming and spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. We're pretty close to each other. So next time you're in Austin, let me know. We'll go shoot guns or eat barbecue or all the above. Have a good time.
Yeah. All right, man. Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us on Protect It All, where we explore the crossroads of IT and OT cybersecurity. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay ahead in this ever-evolving field. Until next time.